Thank you. So some of you guys are familiar with me. I have a presence online, good, bad, whatever. Let's just forget about. If you like me, that's good. If you don't, hopefully I could change your mind by the end of this. Anyway, so I'm Marc Lobliner. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at TigerFitness.com, CEO of MTS Nutrition, and also creator of the Outright Bar, which is what you guys have been eating deliciously throughout this event. Now, this isn't going to be a marketing presentation. This is going to be on nutrition. Okay, I don't want this to just be a sales piece. However, if you want to buy our stuff, that's great. And I'm going to go into the bar because it was created for youth athletes. Going into who I am and what I do, first and foremost, I'm a father of 3. My daughter is a 15-year-old athletic phenom. You could tell my daughter deadlifts 370 pounds, ECNL soccer player, just a beast. My son's 12 years old. He plays soccer at a high level, and he also boxes. And I'm an 8-year-old, and I'm just really glad that he can move and he's not picking his nose and eating his boogers anymore. We got to set those metrics that we're hitting daily. So for me, this is my passion. Nutrition, formulating supplements, and most recently formulating a really delicious whole food protein bar is what I do. However, throughout the years of owning businesses, before this I owned a company called Scivation, which made the first intra-workout product called Extend. That was my product, my creation. Now intra-workout is a category throughout the industry. But I've kept learning, I've kept educating myself, and the number one driver is because of my kids. Because I wanted them to be great athletes, and I was too cheap to pay for the coaching. I didn't want to pay you guys, so I became one of you. So through that, I did everything from phase 3 Exos, and I even got my CrossFit training certification, and I still can't properly do an improper pull-up, which they call a kip. Whatever the hell that is. I went to the seminar, and they're like, do a pull-up. I did a pull-up. No, you did it wrong. And then they taught me how to do it wrong, and that was how to do it right. So never got into it, but I am certified to coach it. So the thing is, with youth sports, how many people in here have kids who play, let's say, club soccer or travel soccer? Anybody in here? Okay, travel baseball, travel whatever it is. Generally speaking, the strength side of things kind of sucks, right? Like they don't normally teach kids how to move. When I started now I was also a strength and performance coach for Campton United Soccer Club in Illinois. I had kids playing at a super high level. USYS, how you go USYS? I know it's not ECNL, but a pretty high level. National champ team. They could kick a ball, they could do the Messi, they could do the Ronaldo goals, crazy moves, Ronaldinho's, right? They couldn't skip laterally. So I'm teaching these elite athletes how to move. They literally go to that, but that's not what this is about. So they lack strength, but what do they really lack? Nutrition. You guys, has anybody ever had a great workout when you're hungry or you're thirsty, your electrolytes are off, you're dehydrated? Anybody here have a good workout? No, anybody like, man, I just got off a flight, I'm dehydrated, I haven't eaten for 2 days. That was a great squat workout. No, it's all about recovery, and there's some great data out there. Some phenomenal data. Tipton, all these great researchers gave us this great data on post-workout nutrition and optimizing nutrition. Doesn't matter, you're training kids. You only see them for what, an hour, maybe 90 minutes a day. Maybe 90 minutes. You could give them baselines and guidelines, and you could control what they eat pre, during, and post-training session. Am I wrong? Unless they're your kids. Even my kids, I'm not going to sit there and monitor what they eat. That's a recipe for an eating disorder. Not going to do that. They're kids. I'm not going to be like, you need to eat chicken and rice, bro. No, they're kids. Let them be kids. But there are certain things that we can do as coaches, that you can do as mentors and performance coaches to help them be better, to help them perform better, to help them recover faster. There are references for every single data point I have in this presentation, but I took it out because it just looked weird. And if you need them, I'll gladly get you them. Every protein recommendation from the ISSN to whatever research I have is in here. But a lot of this is going to be real world applicable data. I can stand up here and tell you about the rate of protein synthesis, MPS, all this great stuff. Doesn't matter. Your athletes, I don't care how elite they are. I don't care if they're in college. Chad, my partner over there, he played college football. Did most of your teammates, what'd they eat when they weren't playing? They're college kids, man. They're college kids. They're interested in girls and playing sports. Or Obviously, well, whatever. They're interested in something and playing sports, right? So anyway, so children develop at a very rapid pace, whether they're U7 or U18 players. They need adequate nutrition to properly fuel their brain and body development, as well as recovery and health. While certain dietary guidelines can be adhered to, they're children. We do not believe in being restrictive or making food a bad thing. At the end of the day, these kids will be burning a lot of calories. Just the lacrosse players over there the other day. Bo had them over. These are elite athletes. Better than probably most 90% of the kids, 99% of the kids we all train. They were gassed. How many calories used? They burned a lot. And their EPOC was probably through the roof, right? Generally speaking, your main issue is are these kids eating enough? You know, you don't have to worry about them eating a Twinkie or a Ding Dong or Doritos. They need calories. So I'm not worried about that. We're not gonna do that. That's not what this is, because it's not gonna work. So I'm gonna give you the summary in the beginning and then we'll refine it, okay? Take home message, get plenty of whole foods such as fruits, vegetables, lean meats, whole grains. Anybody adverse to that? I know there may be some vegans here. Sorry, get your tofu, soy, whatever you guys eat. Limit intake of processed foods. Cookies, Pop-Tarts, fast food like McDonald's. I'm not saying eliminate, limit. Instead of 3 times a day, maybe once every 2 days. You know, maybe try to pack a lunch, maybe try to do something different, try to be better. Eat healthy fats in moderation, nuts, peanut butter. Kids need healthy fats. They're usually gonna be eating a lot of crappy fats, so it's good to get the healthy ones to kind of balance it out. Okay, enjoy food, do not be restrictive. At the end of the day, they're kids. So protein intake. This is the main thing I want you guys to focus on. Kids, generally speaking, they just don't eat enough protein. You know, they just don't. Now, on the adverse, it's not that hard to get enough. A lot of your athletes weigh around 100. Of the younger athletes, let's say U13 and under, around 100 pounds. 100 grams of protein is literally like 2.5 chicken breasts. It's not that big of a deal, or a few servings of Greek yogurt. It's not that hard to get it, right? So while protein is often vilified in the media, we know with current data, actually accidentally left the reference points in there. Now you know I wasn't playing. So when taken in conjunction with exercise will help to improve performance and decrease muscle soreness post-training. About 0.5 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is sufficient. So your child might be getting enough, but again, it depends on your community, depends on the family. Have you ever looked at a shopping cart of somebody in a store with kids? It's generally 97% crap. That's what they're eating. That's what their parents are eating. You know, if I found the wealthier your community, the better the kids eat. So this is especially important for those of you helping kids who have less economic advantage, who cannot afford the healthy foods, whose mom's not worried about buying the organic chicken breast at Whole Foods for $20 a pound. That's not who this is. This is for the vast majority of who we train, especially those of you training at a rec or a school or a club level. A lot of these kids don't know any better, okay? And even college athletes, like they got to that school, could have been on straight genetics. They could be on the McDonald's and Doritos diet, but how do we make them better? And nutrition is gonna fuel that. So protein intake's key. As for protein safety, bottom line is it's safe. Does anybody want to debate that? I'm sure you guys probably fight this as much as I do. Anybody gonna say protein isn't safe? We could debate that, we could whatever. Bottom line is data, data never really proves anything. It indicates very heavily that protein is extremely safe. And I put this because, kids. So one thing we have to realize, carbohydrates are not essential, right? They're not. You can live without them. It's really not a good way to live for an athlete. Now, there's tons of studies on decreased performance when you limit carbohydrate. Now, for some populations, it's the way to go. For athletes, I'm not going to say that. However, protein and fat are the 2 essential nutrients. There's essential fatty acids, there's essential amino acids. There's no essential carbohydrate. So most children get plenty in their diet, but you have focus on healthy fats, nuts and seeds, fish oil, peanut butter. I put MCT and coconut oil. Those are kind of on the cusp. They're saturates, yet they're pretty cool. MCT acts differently as an energy source in the body. But again, they're kids. You're probably not going to be, too focused on drinking MCT. Carbohydrate intake. So basically, you fill in the rest once you get your protein requirements. You get your gram of protein per pound of body weight, or 0.5. You focus on that. Then the kids can have carbohydrate. Now, my main thing of this, they're not going to make healthy choices all the time. They're not gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna have this because it's gonna fuel my workout. They're not gonna do that. So the bottom line is some great options. Fruits are great. I know there's this whole anti-fruit thing. Fruits are so good for you. The nutrients in it. And for athletes, having fructose, having that liver store, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So I'm all about fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Potatoes are great, super high in potassium, to avoid cramping. Bananas, again, things like that are what I'd focus on. So, by the way, I forgot to mention this. Anybody want a question or anything, interrupt me. Or else this feels too much like a university, which is weird. So if you have any questions, just throw us a yes.
What's the max amount? Because I've always had this conversation.
Yeah.
Or my argument is, what's the max amount per serving of protein that an athlete can have?
So
I've always been told, right, anything over 30 grams of protein is just a win.
Okay, I love this question. Thank you so much. So the question is, if you didn't hear him, what's the max amount of protein a person can intake, right? I'm a 230-pound male at around 6% body fat. Okay, let's take a female, obviously a little bit smaller than me. So by that assumption, you're telling me that a 13-year-old girl and a 230-pound male, 40 years old, have the same protein intake allowance. There's a lot of variables in protein intake. I'll get to the easy answer, but there's plenty of variables involved. When you ate your last meal, what your activity was, what your body needs. So the bottom line is, at the end of the day, it's all about getting adequate protein. As we've shown in studies done on fasted individuals, your body will uptake more as you need it. Your body's goal is to survive. Your body digests all the protein you eat, 100% of it. It's just a matter of what it goes towards, right? Your body just doesn't implode. It doesn't poop it out. What it does, well, obviously it poops out waste. What it does is the protein that is not used for its intended function, muscle recovery, growth, whatever, is converted to glucose via gluconeogenesis. So if you, let's say your body needs 20 grams of protein, you eat 80, cool. You just got like 60 grams of inefficient carbohydrate. It's an energy expensive way to do it. So it's called gluconeogenesis is the term. It makes you sound really smart with parents. So if there's ever an attractive mom who asks you that, throw gluconeogenesis, game changer. All right, it's almost like having the blue check on social media. Not quite as well, You guys must have missed that inside conversation. Yeah, I'm not gonna repeat that for the camera. My wife will watch this. And she'll be like, oh, so that's why you got the blue check. So, where'd it go? Okay, there we go. At least that one's working. This one does not like me. All right, so does that answer your question?
I've never heard that term. That's awesome.
At the end of the day, I want you to get a gram of protein per pound of body weight. I don't care if you eat it all at meal one. I don't care if you spread it out. It's optimal to spread it out in feedings around 3 to 4 hours apart. But these are kids. Like, they're fine. Like, just make sure they get enough protein. Like, have a couple chicken breasts. You're good. All right, we go really scientific. I give you like exactly what to eat here and there. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna work. If you can't apply it, who cares? If no one's gonna do it, you might have one kid out of 1,000. I speak from experience because at Campton I trained 500 kids. And I got them to do this. If I went to anything beyond this, no. This has around 90% compliance because it's easy. Hey, have a protein, have some of your mom's protein shake. I don't know, just get your protein in. That's the main thing to emphasize. Think protein. I'd hate to say it, but that's the main take home, is get enough protein. Now, what we can do as coaches is we can focus on the around training. So tell them to either eat on the way, and if they don't, have something to give them before training. I don't like to see, look, there's no reason to fast before training, especially for an athlete. So the period I'm looking at is pre, intra, and post-workout nutrition. Pre-workout nutrition around 60 minutes to around the time of the training. Depends on the athlete. I know some people who could eat, literally hop on the treadmill. Some people will puke it right up. So depends on the athlete. If you can, have them have something on the way when they go there. So ACSM, they had a good paper, adequate food and fluid should be consumed before, during, and after exercise to help maintain blood glucose concentration during exercise. You have an extremely glucose utilizing activity in what we do, high intensity. So we want to make sure there's adequate glucose floating around so they don't have a blood sugar dump. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at stable blood sugar levels. So for pre-workout nutrition, what I personally recommend is mixed meal with protein, fat, carbohydrate, and sometimes electrolytes. I'm not gonna say sometimes, all the time. If you get electrolytes, get them. Electrolytes are vastly important. My daughter actually recently found out she was dehydrated. She drinks more water than I do, but she drinks water. I always drink electrolytes. We have an electrolyte product called Naturalite I throw in there. She just likes plain water. So she had an electrolyte imbalance. She was actually dehydrated. So, and she doesn't eat processed foods. It's just what she doesn't eat. She's all about eating the stuff we cook at home. So when people eat processed foods, it's full of what? Sodium. So she's not getting enough sodium. So electrolytes are great. So going back to the outright bar, the reason we designed it, and I have to bring this up, because it was an accident. Because Chad and I, our kids both play club sports. My daughter one weekend had 3 games back to back to back. She was 10 years old. It was at a tournament. And she played center mid. Center mid runs at that age maybe 6 miles, 7 miles. Anybody better at soccer than me? About 7 miles at like 10 years old? So it's a 9v9 field. Yeah, about so. So, dude, there was nothing to feed her between games. Quest bar had too much fiber, prebiotic fiber. You don't want to eat too much fiber before training because, yeah, I didn't put a video on that one. And Cliff bars, they were just like, it's just, hey, carbs. There it is. So I wanted to create something with whole food protein, whole food carbohydrate, whole food fats, and then some protein in it. So that's where the outright bar came from. That's the God's honest truth. So, you know, a good example, a banana with peanut butter. Who doesn't want to eat that? An outright bar, whey protein, banana, peanut butter shake. Put it in a blender, mix it up, boom. Peanut butter jelly sandwich. Nothing's wrong with PBJ. What kid doesn't want PBJ? Nothing's wrong with that. Like, let's kick it old school. Intra-workout. So I like branched chain amino acids. A lot of parents don't like anything supplement-wise. I didn't even put this in my recommended supplements, but BCAA do have the ability, per data that I actually funded back when I owned Scivation, where you actually can help improve lean muscle gain and actually improve fat loss. Like, this data never got published, but it was legit data. I mean, unfortunately, I sold the company before it was published. Fortunately, I got paid, so who cares? So anyway, so studies demonstrate BCAA might help build muscle and burn fat, but our main concern for hydration is electrolytes and want to keep blood sugar regulated. Studies demonstrate a minimum of 22 grams carbohydrate per hour per performance benefit. So electrolytes should be added. Again, we could kick it old school and make it easy. You know, Gatorade diluted with water to equal 22 grams of carbs. They have the mini Gatorades, not the bigger one. There's the mid-size. The little ones are about 22 grams of carbs. And I think they did that based on this study. They had to. It's too much of a coincidence. Has your electrolytes in it. Good to go. Dilute it with water because that's not enough liquid to sustain an hour. So dilute Gatorade is one way. There's a carbohydrate powders. I make one called Carb 10. Again, like that might be, that's confusing, right? You can mix with BCAA for flavor. So I wouldn't like have a meal while training. I put that there, but I think we all realize we want to drink it. Are we good with that? Because like, okay, hold on. Let me eat something real quick in the middle of a session. It's just not going to work. Post-workout nutrition. So much data on post-workout nutrition. But this is on the elite athletes, okay? These are on endurance runners. These are on basketball players, football players. And if you are training people like MMA guys, professional basketball players, it might be good to get that big 3-to-1 carb to protein, right? Like there's pretty good data on that, right? But at the end of the day, at this age, it's just about getting them nutrients. Now, the reason I'm gonna recommend you make sure they eat something right after your workout, like Chad was telling me yesterday, when you were at UC, they used to make you drink an Ensure. After training, they watched you drink it, right? Even back when he played football in the 1970s at University of Cincinnati. Just kidding. 1999? Yeah. He gave me a mic and he's sitting here. I had to at least make one old person joke. He's got 2 years on me though. So anyway, so it's not magical, but you can ensure they get it in. And if you have a facility and you sell these items that they can buy and eat, you know, as gym owners, like you kind of, it's an added value. It helps them because the nutrition's there. Like we sat here and we listened to a bunch of great presentations that tied in how this is also a business. We love what we do, want to help you, but it's also a business, right? So if you're able to add at every session, you know, $3, and let's say your cost is like $1, you're adding per every session an extra, even $1. Like that's $12 EBITDA a day. It's not bad. Not bad at all, right? So one adequate protein, for kids around 10 to 20 grams, somewhere in there. Carbohydrate, 1-to-1, 2-to-1, or even 3-to-1 carb to protein. Doesn't have to be specific, just basically a little bit of carb, protein, and fat. Fat, I like it. Some people don't. I do, because if I eat just protein and carbs, I'm gonna crash. Fat kind of keeps it all stable. And that's why, again, like my bar's good for that. Again, it's why I made it. Whey protein carb shake, or if you can't, just get them some food. Like, hey, we're done training, let's go to Chipotle, bro. Or go home, eat a meal. You don't have to be that. But the reason I say get it while they're there is because they're not gonna, it's hard to get adherence unless you actually see them start to eat it. Just like, hey, start chewing that thing on the way out. So I used to be like, I better see you start chewing that on the way out this door. So just make sure they get that nutrition in. It'll definitely help them. Now I'm gonna get into, now supplements, I didn't even wanna put this in here because then it just seems like I'm selling stuff, but I have to go over this. Now it's not gonna be, it's two things, like two categories, health and creatine. Not gonna go beyond that, they're kids. Every parent wants you to sell them this miraculous supplement that'll suddenly make their kid Lionel Messi. It's always the kids who aren't Lionel Messi. Those are the kids who, what can we give them? I'm like, better genetics? Prayer? I'm like, I don't know. So the one thing I did a lot of research, I'm sorry I pegged, I'm very high energy. I'm almost like you, but not quite. Not quite. You're much more deadly than I am. But anyway, so the one thing that I've done a lot of research on is viral replication within the cell. Now, again, disclaimer, I'm not a PhD, not an epidemiologist, but I know how stuff works. I've been doing supplements since the late 90s. So kids can't train when they're sick. And post-workout, after training, your immune system's in a very vulnerable state. Your immune system does drop post-workout. It does. It's one of the reasons they use for shutting down gyms for COVID. Well, after training, the immune system drops. Okay, so let's sit inside with no sunlight and not exercise and eat McDonald's all day. Cool, sounds good, made sense to me. So anyway, so here's what I recommend. How you get these, a lot of kids don't take pills, that's the disadvantage. And like I said, kids don't have perfect diets, so you can't use the whole whole food is great argument. You can't, Flintstones vitamins don't have enough of this stuff in there. So bottom line, I wanna see them get zinc. For kids, anywhere between 10 and 30 milligrams a day. Quercetin's great. And a lot of people don't talk about this. What quercetin does isn't necessarily the action in and of itself. It does have some new data on brain function in quercetin. But the great thing is it's something called an ionophore. Guys, remember the big hydroxychloroquine crap we heard about and all this political? Bottom line is the reason that works is ionophore. What an ionophore does, it makes the cell permeable to other antiviral nutrients. So it basically opens up the cell. So I want quercetin in there. Vitamin D3, especially in the Midwest. You North Dakota boys, I saw you shining on the way in, you're so white. It's no sunlight in there, right? I lived in Illinois up till last year, right? So you need vitamin D, you're not getting enough. You're not getting enough of that sunlight. If you did go outside naked, you'd die of frostbite in the worst areas possible. So vitamin D3, I like 5,000 IUs a day. Vitamin C, 1 gram, BID means twice a day, basically. So morning and night, that'd be a good time to take it. Creatine. So creatine is simply 3 amino acids. That's it. But for some reason, because it really works, the media is like, this thing's gotta be an anabolic steroid. It's not, but it's awesome. In fact, I'd recommend it. You're talking about, and this parlays into the gentleman who just spoke, the most altruistic man in the world. The guy's working with kids with disabilities. Now you look at brain function, and you look at Alzheimer's, there's data on creatine in all these populations. Literally no side effects. The bloating thing was due to some issue in the 90s we could talk about where there was, let's say they were importing creatine from a place that's not good to import from, but let's just say the German stuff's really good. Okay, so bottom line is there's a ton of benefits. ATP, like you're talking about high intensity training, running on that treadmill, creatine. Like that's how you're gonna get that stuff back. Creatine's gonna help you replenish ATP. It's gonna lead to better performance on the treadmill, better maxes, more repetition, better gains. So creatine's main function is it helps you restore things, helps you replenish, helps you train harder and better, helps you to overload, helps you recover, helps you to gain. There you go. So creatine's an easy one. And That's it. I like to leave a lot of time for Q&A because this is where it's about you. You know, and that's why it was great we had that. Like that question about gluconeogenesis, I didn't have that in here. You know, so any questions you have, nutrition is awesome. Yes, the smartest guy in the room over here.
All right, so I got two over for you. All right, the first one is elaborate and talk about, because I agree with you here, with including fats in the diet and a derivative to cholesterol and testosterone production.
Yeah.
Naturally, so that we can all agree or basically have a conversation on why fatty acids can help us, not just in everyday life, but even in performance.
Oh, that's great. So the question was about the inclusion of fats in your diet and their importance and why we do it. Well, first of all, they're essential. If you don't get adequate fats, you die. And also for hormone production, not just for males, but for females, look, there's adequate and then there's not necessary, right? Like, so when I say fats help you with hormone production, it's kind of like zinc in the immune system, right? Like, if you take more zinc, that doesn't make you more immune, but if you're deficient in zinc, then you have a whole plethora of things, from hormonal decline to issues with immunity, right? Fats are the same way. If you're clicking it, let's say if you need 60 grams of fat a day, based on, let's say a metrics of 0.5 grams per pound of body weight. Let's go with that as just because there's not really like protein, we have one. They haven't really set a fat one because it's all dependent on carbohydrate, energy expansion. Bottom line is fats play a role in everything you do. Every bodily function, from hormone production to hair, skin, you name it, it does it. And as for energy, fats are a nice, longer, controlled form of energy. Your brain, for example, loves fats. Like the one benefit of ketosis or even exogenous ketones, which is a supplement you could take without having to get into ketosis, is your brain really likes it. So you need fat for every hormone function, every bodily function. It's a great form of energy. And getting into cholesterol is actually chemically, it's a steroid. It's a structural steroid. But there has been studies demonstrating that with lack of cholesterol, your body processes just suck. And if you look at some of the deleterious effects of, and look, I say this with great respect for vegans, and in fact, one of our brands, Ambrosia, has the #1 selling plant protein at Vitamin Shop. Okay, it's delicious. However, you see a lot of issues presenting with vegans, and I think a lot of it is due to the lack of cholesterol. Because I can't figure out why they have these issues. You have a lot of vegans who come off it and go to a more keto-based diet, and they see these health benefits that you think they found the miracle cure, when in reality, I think they're just filling a deficiency they had. So that's the main thing. And as far as brain function and performance, you look at the essential fatty acids, well, the EPA and DHA, derivatives of fish oil, which vegans can't get they can from seaweed. It's just very, very expensive and very inefficient. You look at the benefits of DHA, EPA in autism, in depression, in physicality, and anti-inflammation from a natural standpoint. You're looking at just things that really help your body. And you look at the benefits of monounsaturated fats. Monounsaturates are amazing for heart health, for cholesterol, HDL versus LDL, lipid profiles. I go on for days, but did that kind of get at my thoughts on fat? Because I have another 2 hours if you guys. Oh, that'd be great, yeah. You're in my area too.
Where?
I'm in Brentwood. I'm only an hour and a half out.
So then maybe the other thing that I think would be nice, because listen, we all don't eat perfect carbohydrate, fat, protein all the time. Maybe can you touch on it? You already started talking about the prioritization within the body of then alcohol and exogenous ketones, whether it's maybe exogenous or endogenous if we're already in that state, and the caloric value of that, and how the body will prioritize all of it.
So are you asking the caloric value of alcohol and its function on the body, of alcohol itself, or of?
Well, basically, we are understanding that there's 3 macronutrients.
Yes, yeah, and then there's alcohol, yep.
But then there's alcohol.
Alcohol is just the fun macronutrient.
Technically, then there's ketone that actually technically has a caloric value.
Yeah, and MCTs are 8. Yeah, there's some caveats. So we round, and there's different nutrients, for example, for example, free-form amino acids have a different caloric content than a whole protein molecule. MCTs have 8 calories per gram. I believe alcohol is 7 calories per gram. Am I correct on that?
And I believe also exogenous ketones.
Yeah, so I would hate to be the bearer of bad news, but alcohol is just all out bad. Like it just is. It's just, I know we drink it, it's fun, and but it really does some damage to, not only does it halt fat burning when you're drinking it, does it add calories, but it also stunts your fat burning for, I believe, 9 hours afterwards. I don't remember the exact goal. Alcohol, yeah, pretty much. Alcohol pretty much, alcohol is definitely, and it's hepatotoxic. I mean, but fit it in. Find a way to calorically make up for it. One easy way people do it is they'll trade it for 2 grams of carbs and 1 gram of alcohol. Usually the problem with alcohol is you're inebriated. Like you're not gonna be able to track if you're getting crunk. So there's issues with alcohol tracking altogether. And also if you're, let's say you're dieting, you're getting ready for a Spartan race or whatever it is, or you're getting, alcohol just removes a lot of inhibition. So you'll be like, screw it, I'll have the buffalo wings. So there's a lot of bad that goes with alcohol, but again, it's part of life. You have to fit, if you want to fit it in, you will, and you just do it, and you allow that cushion in your diet for it, and just realize you're not optimal. But what do we do that's actually optimal? Like nothing in life is perfectly optimal. So if your life is enhanced by going out and drinking a beer with your buddies while you watch a football game, why would we take away that quality of life? And again, nobody here is trying to win a Super Bowl today, or nobody. If you're at that level of performance where it matters, yeah, I wouldn't drink at all. And there are things like, for example, ketones. There are exogenous ketones. They're called BHBs, and they do have, I believe it's 7 or 8 calories. I think it's 7, and they're great. I love them. I like it for people not in ketosis, because I do believe that ketones have a much more beneficial effect on the brain. MCTs also have that effect of giving you that energy without having to be in ketosis. But there are benefits to ketosis. And we see that in people, like, especially if you have seizures, if you're someone who gets seizures, if you're someone with maybe borderline type 2, it could have applications, type 2 diabetes. So again, there's no good and bad diet. It just depends on the person and the situation. And so yeah, alcohol is one of those where I'd love to say it doesn't matter, but the research is pretty clear that alcohol really sucks. But I mean, it makes people look better than they really look. So it turns a 2 into like a 7, So when you're at the club and it's 2 a.m., whatever works. Yes, sir.
I got it for you. So what would you recommend to be the number one post-recovery sports supplement for developing athletes? Because there's a lot of data out there and there's a lot of suggestions. Like obviously you have creatine and D3 being like the main performance for themselves, but like for kids maybe does martial arts, baseball practice, and something else in a day. Like when I was little, I did 3 sports in a day.
Yeah.
There's like Elevate ATP that's out there. There's double dose of creatine. There's tart cherry extract. Like for like coaches, parents, like if they're looking like for something to really make sure their kids are recovered properly with the stretching and stuff, what would be your number one product that you would recommend?
For youth athletes, the number one product, period, for supplements is going to be creatine. I think making sure you have adequate electrolytes and fluid intake is great. And obviously there's other things you can look at, like Elevate ATP. The reason I like it is some people just are afraid of creatine. A lot of what you get from the Peak ATP, the Elevate ATP, you're getting from creatine. So I use that in our pre-workout that doesn't have creatine because it addresses the ATP argument for creatine. Generally speaking, I want to see kids get nutrients. You can't train if you have the flu. You can't train if you have COVID. So I want to make sure that if they do, they're going to get sick. So I want to minimize the impact of them getting sick. I want to minimize it. And that's where having these nutrients in there helps. And honestly, for kids, a lot of what we're going to look at, a lot of what we're trying to prevent, if you just hit those, just get some healthy foods, get adequate protein. And you're looking at athletes who are training. So just training right there, their body's going to have those natural adaptations, natural responses. So I mean, I can go into a laundry list of 400 supplements, but applicability for kids, like if you could just get a college athlete to take creatine or a high school athlete to take creatine, they're gonna see a benefit. They might not even notice it, but the benefit will be there. Non-responders usually just means that they already had creatine in their system because they were eating foods rich in creatine. That's people who are like, creatine is found in food. It's not some magical synthetically derived, it's there. It's in our food supply. So people who don't respond, generally speaking, probably already are getting the benefits from creatine. So there's something to look at as well. But I wouldn't, other than, I wouldn't go that there's like this one thing for kids. Again, I'm looking at immunity. I want the kid, I don't want sick days. Sick days, you're down for, let's say, 4 days for the flu, and then you're weaker for another week. You have dehydration, they can't eat, they can't fuel. A good protein powder, and you're good to go if they can't eat enough protein. A lot of kids can't. A lot of kids just don't like eating meat. It is what it is. Yes?
What's the optimal age you would recommend for creatine supplement?
So the optimal age for creatine supplementation for me is as soon as they can get out of the bottle. But honestly speaking, I'd say for parents not to wig out around 12, 13. I mean, if you have a 13-year-old athlete, and just, I'd recommend it. But again, most parents, again, the media for some reason made creatine out to be something evil, when in reality it's just not. And I don't care if kids, I'm not sitting there on an Amway program trying to sell creatine, but if a parent doesn't want, I'm like, cool, just make sure your kid eats, gets electrolytes. Creatine is the most I'd ask a parent. Like, I want to give you stuff you guys could take home. And again, I dealt with a board for a nonprofit soccer club, and they were all stupid. So again, even recommending creatine, they looked at me like I was giving their kid acid. So I understand, and that you almost need to relate. You can't even put that in your documents of what to get. It's here's our nutrition, because most coaches, you're not charging for diet coaching, but you're going to give them okay, here's some recommended stuff for nutrition. And I have one written up, it's still on Campton United's site. I can link you guys to that later. But yeah, you can write up a general guideline. I won't even put it in there. That's for when you have a relationship hey, if you want your kid to maybe just get couple percentage better, recover better, look into this creatine thing and encourage them to do research. And it's a tough ask. Parents always, they see it. Because remember in the 90s, man, when that stuff hit and people were gaining 10 pounds, yeah. Great. You had the next question, sir?
Yeah, we've got a researcher in North Texas we did a treadmill with.
Yeah.
A lot of nutritional supplement and they're doing a lot of research right now with statin use in performance and affecting neurological performance in the legs.
Statin?
Yeah, so statin. So what I was asking is do you have any kind of, with your company, recommendation on nutrition for people who are on statins? And because you're mentioning on cholesterol and creatine.
Yeah, as far as statins, that gets into medical stuff, which I tend to sway away from. I'm not a fan of statins. Per the data, they do more harm than good, and you could probably do better without them. I think it's a disservice when doctors prescribe them. That's my personal opinion. I don't have a medical opinion because I'm an idiot. I make protein bars, but but yeah, I haven't seen anything. For statin use, that's beyond this. That's beyond my pay grade. At this place, beyond what I paid for education as well. So, but yeah, there's I'm sure there is stuff that'll help them. But what statins do is it decreases. It does present a lot of risk in and of itself, and the benefit is not all there from what I've researched myself. Do you have a question, Bo?
No, you answered it. That's fine.
Oh.
Yeah, I was about to creatine.
Can you naturally consume enough food to create the creatine that you need, or do you think it needs to be in a sub?
You can absolutely. The question is, can you get creatine from food? Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely can. Certain meats are high in creatine. There's a lot of foods that are. But what I want to do is just make sure, all you need is 2.5 to 5 grams a day. That's it. And it's cheap. We have a 400 gram one for $13, and it lasts forever. Yeah. So creatine, and that's the German stuff. That's not Chinese stuff. That's the good stuff. From the people who make Mercedes. Hopefully not in the same plant, but you get my point. So the good stuff is really inexpensive. Cost has been driven down because supply and demand is up there, and yeah, so it's become much more efficient. You can get it from regular food, though. I just want to make sure they get it. It's just like a multivitamin. It's kind of like just insurance. And most kids just aren't getting enough food to get the 2.5 to 5 grams. Yes, sir.
Just real quick, I think we could just quickly clarify too, because obviously there's a lot of new expensive creatines out there. Just
Yeah.
I think briefly explain why the classic monohydrate's the important one to get, why they don't need to spend $50 on hydrochloride and maybe these extra ones.
So creatine monohydrate is the benchmark of creatine. And a lot of people, some people, oh, it bloats. It doesn't bloat. The studies don't show any bloat. It could just be a lot of times, there's a lot of factors that get into that. One is that usually when people start taking creatine, they're starting their bulking. So it's probably not the creatine, it's probably the pizza. And also, there was, back in the day, the only time you could find creatine was in a post-workout shake with 75 grams of dextrose. Dextrose is glucose. That's gonna bloat you. Like you're getting in a whole, just vast, boom, get an extra 75 grams of carbs, all in a bolus, all at once. And there was, again, back in the 90s, we talked about this yesterday, there was a bad batch of creatine that was imported in from China. And we don't even know what the hell was in it. But that was probably where that came about. But generally speaking, so we've had creatine ethyl ester, now we have creatine hydrochloride, creatine HCl. Creatine monohydrate always wins in the end. And at the end of the day, creatine HCl says, well, you have to take less. But then they have a body weight chart and it's the same amount. Because basically creatine monohydrate is just creatine molecule, water, monohydrate. So again, it's so easy, it's so inexpensive. There's no reason to rewrite the Bible on this one. Just take creatine monohydrate. It's the cheapest, it has the most data. I like data. A lot of people, he likes data. I like studies. If you can't equal the studies and show it's gonna be better for the cost, I'm gonna go with the tried and true one, the one with efficacy and safety studies. You know, the most studied nutrient next to caffeine, period. Supplement, that is. Any other questions? All right, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.